Whenever a director wants to display their mastery of the form and wow the audience with a visually stunning feat, inevitably the tool they reach for in their proverbial tool belt is the long take, aka the oneer. You'll be watching a movie or maybe a TV show, and at some point it hits you. The camera has not cut to a new shot in a really long time. With each generation of directors trying to outdo the last, the evolution of the oneer is a story of creativity and ambition. In this video, we'll break down the legendary oneer and how it evolved from the early days of cinema all the way to present day. Let's dive in. The history of the long take is inextricably linked with the history of cinema itself, as the earliest films were simply cameras set up and rolled continuously for the entire length of the reel. Films like 1903's The Great Train Robbery consisted of 14 unbroken shots with little to no camera movement. And while it showcased early experiments with staging and blocking, this really wouldn't qualify for our modern understanding of what a oneer is.
Thank you, sir. All right, see you later. Thanks.
To build our criteria for what makes a successful oneer, let's use the example that comes to most people's minds, Martin Scorsese's Copacabana scene from Goodfellas. First, and most obviously, the shot needs to go on for a long time, and that needs to be longer than the conventional editing pace of the film. Whereas the average shot length throughout Goodfellas is closer to 6.8 seconds, this shot lasts for a breathless 3 minutes. Next, there needs to be some kind of camera movement. A stationary camera on a tripod shooting the same angle in the same place would not typically be considered a oneer.
Every time you two.
Here, Scorsese and his cinematographer set the bar for what can even be achieved with a steady cam fluidly moving from the line outside, through the back door, and into the club. Third, the actors themselves should be involved in some sort of blocking or choreography. The more elaborate and meticulously planned out, the better. More often than not, this blocking extends to other departments, including camera, lighting, set deck, props, or special effects. And finally, fluidity is a must. The audience should perceive the oneer as a single take existing in real time, though it can include cleverly hidden cuts as long as they don't mess with the flow. Put all these together and the end result is a continuous sequence that wows the audience, just like it wows Karen in this scene, drawing us deeper into the narrative and the world of the film.
What do you do?
What?
What do you do?
I'm in construction.
And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Let's head back to the 30s.
In the great movie studios, complicated traveling cameras swing into action, marvels of precision and ingenuity.
You probably didn't expect to have a special effects-driven oneer this early on, but 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's transformation scene is innovative for multiple reasons. Its use of a long take, 2 minutes in this case, to display a seamless, horrifying metamorphosis is incredible. The transformation was achieved through a clever combination of makeup applied in contrasting colors and a series of colored filters on the camera lens, which allowed the makeup to gradually appear and disappear. On black and white film, this doesn't appear as different colors, but as shadows and facial deformations. There is no cut here. The spinning camera allows the filmmakers to layer one shot over the other in a fever dream montage.
Wait a minute. Positively indecent.
It truly amazed audiences as they witnessed the transformation in real time and demonstrated the potential of long takes to amplify dramatic intensity, VFX involved or not. The long one-take dance sequence of Pick Yourself Up in 1936's Swing Time showcased seamless integration of choreography. Though there are two cutaways to a man's reaction, Fred Astaire and Marjorie Reynolds performed the entire dance sequence in one long take, capturing the magic of Astaire's intricate footwork and the fluid chemistry between the performers without the distraction of cuts. This allowed the audience to fully appreciate the athleticism and artistry of the dance, something future musicals would embrace and build upon. War movies are often the place for innovative long takes as they heighten the realism of the moment. This tradition started all the way back in 1927 with Abel Gantz's Napoleon, a film that pioneered new ways of moving the camera that are still used today. In 1944, Laurence Olivier brought us this long, unbroken take of a full cavalry charge in the Battle of Agincourt in his movie Henry V, demonstrating how continuous action can heighten the grandeur of large-scale battles. It required careful choreography of both horses and actors, as well as precise camera movements to maintain focus. The long take emphasized the scope and scale of the scene, creating a sense of realism that was rare in war sequences of this era. Smash cut to 1948. Alfred Hitchcock attempted something no other director had done to date. With Rope, he wanted to create the illusion of a single continuous shot for the entire film. The actual film consists of 10 long takes, but the cuts were crafted to be invisible. He used techniques such as the body wipe
Right here.
to mask when the camera did cut, and it had to often, as film reels of the time could only hold about 10 minutes of film. The camera would move into a dark object, like this character's jacket. Hitchcock would then cut and resume from the same place in the next shot, permanently adding this tool to the director's toolkit for future oneers. What makes Gene Kelly's song and dance number in Singin' in the Rain so stirring is that it's actually made up of a series of 5 oneers, each over 30 seconds in length. This allows the audience to fully immerse themselves in Kelly's impressive performance. It's a dance between Kelly and the camera. What makes it more remarkable is that everything on set had to be operated manually, as there were no remote controls at the time. Panning or tilting the camera, pushing in for close-ups of Gene's smiling face, tracking his dance, even adjusting the lighting to make the rain more apparent, and even the rain itself. All of this was done by hand, thus requiring a massive crew. Since the sequence was actually shot during the day, 2 blocks of outdoor sets had to be draped with tarps to create enough darkness so that the rain could be backlit and seen clearly on screen. Cue the musical montage.
That's stupendous. This will start a new trend in musical pictures.
Dans ces cas-là, il faut s'habiller simplement.
Max Ophuls' The Earrings of Madame Day is often cited by directors like Paul Thomas Anderson and Stanley Kubrick as having had a direct influence on them.
Jamais je n'en ai eu tellement
Particularly,
besoin.
it's Ophuls' use of camera movement in long fluid shots like this one. Notice the camera tracks with the gaze of the character, connecting the audience to her internal thoughts. It feels as though the camera is lovingly looking about this opulent set, which required meticulous planning and lots of lighting. This 8-minute unbroken shot in Sidney Lumet's 12 Angry Men at first blush appears uncomplicated. The continuous take sees the characters enter the jury deliberation room, move around, converse casually, and eventually take their seats. But despite its seemingly simple execution, the sequence required a crane and half a day to set up. Each character at some point gets his own medium shot. To do this, the dolly's base was adjusted to 13 different positions around the compact set, while the camera was boomed through 11 positions horizontally and 8 vertically.
Yeah, we can all get out of here pretty quick, huh?
Cinematographer Boris Kaufman spent 7 hours setting up the lighting for this shot. This made the blocking and movement of the actors crucial. What appears spontaneous was actually the result of precise coordination to ensure the actors hit their marks. 1958 brought us one of the most celebrated oneers in cinematic history, Orson Welles' opening shot from his film Touch of Evil. It began with a close-up of someone placing a time bomb in the trunk of a car, and over the next 3+ minutes blends wide shots, medium shots, and close-ups using a crane-mounted camera. The unbroken shot shifts focus across several different characters, bringing us high above buildings and streetlights, then taking us in close for dialogue.
Where were you born, miss?
Mrs.
This oneer creates a palpable sense of anticipation and tension as the audience waits for the bomb to detonate. The explosion itself finally brings us the first cut of the film. The Battle of Agincourt oneer from Henry V walked so that this D-Day invasion oneer from The Longest Day could run. Haha, and they do run quite a bit. In this unbroken aerial shot, we follow soldiers as they dodge bullets and explosions. This, quite possibly, is the first oneer to include an aerial shot from a helicopter. This is due to the work of French camera operator Roger Monteron, who, upon being hired on The Longest Day, designed the first camera stabilizer. This innovative device used springs to cushion the camera, effectively dampening vibrations caused by the chopper. From there, they just had to make sure the camera was pointing in the right direction. But on the ground, the orchestration of a large-scale battle with numerous extras, special effects, and moving parts required intense precision, and would inspire many future directors staging large-scale battles in their films, like Spielberg and Mendes. Not to be outdone in this Cold War movie arms race, the Soviet Union staged this truly insane helicopter shot in 1966's War and Peace, with over 12,000 extras. At least something good came out of the Cold War. In Weekend by Jean-Luc Godard, we get the infamous car crash scene which has become a landmark moment in the history of the oneer. A lateral tracking shot moves slowly along a rural road, capturing an endless chaotic traffic jam filled with wrecked cars and distressed drivers. The shot covers a whopping 3/4 of a mile and lasts over 7 minutes. The camera's slow movement creates an unsettling, almost hypnotic effect that undulates between comedy and tragedy, leading up to the car wreck that started it all. And that brings us to the 70s. Well then, my faithful droogs. Sometimes the long take isn't about intricate movements and highly choreographed performances, it's about stillness. Like a living picture, this long take at the start of Clockwork Orange is designed to showcase a dystopian world, to let you steep in it while slowly dollying out. This measured shot is played in contrast to the rest of the film, and as Alex says, gets us ready for a
bit of the old ultra-violence.
In 1975's The Passenger, we have a 7-minute oneer that captures the final moments of its protagonist, played by Jack Nicholson. It begins in his hotel room, looking out through steel bars onto a dusty street. The camera then seems to glide through the bars in an almost impossible movement. This was accomplished with a clever trick prop by director Michael Antonioni. The camera rail extends 1 meter outside the window, allowing the camera to smoothly transition outdoors. To avoid seeing the window grill, a subtle zoom reframes the shot, and the grill silently opens as the camera moves out. Once outside, the camera was transferred from the rail to a cable suspended from a high crane. A gyroscopic Westcam camera was used, which absorbs shocks and ensures a seamless transition without visible jerks on screen. This intricate setup enabled continuous movement throughout the entire shot. Then there's this shot from All the President's Men, which is notable for its ability to create tension and realism through simplicity.
Bob Woodward of the Washington Post.
The continuous 6-minute take pushes in on Redford. The simplicity allows the audience to experience the same incremental realizations as Woodward.
How do you think your check got into the bank account of a Watergate burglar?
If nothing else, this shot proves that the long take can be effective in quiet, intimate scenes, just as it is in grand, dynamic ones. Richard Donner famously used the oneer to help sell the narrative of how Superman quickly changes into Clark Kent and vice versa. We begin with Superman flying off Lois Lane's balcony, and then without any cuts, he returns as Clark Kent seconds later to Lois's apartment door.
Superman.
Perhaps the MVP of this oneer is the wardrobe department, showcasing their precision in executing this transformation flawlessly in real time, without the aid of cuts or digital effects.
Hi, can I come in?
Oh, yeah.
One of the most iconic oneers was also one of the first to use a Steadicam. Invented by cameraman Garrett Brown in 1975, the Steadicam is a camera stabilization system that allows for smooth, handheld-style shots without the shakiness of actual handheld filming. In Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, we follow little Danny Torrance on his tricycle through the maze-like hallways of the Overlook Hotel, the Steadicam gliding smoothly behind him. Due to the lack of cuts, there's a building sense of dread and anticipation as Danny explores. The Steadicam revolutionized how filmmakers approach movement within confined spaces, inspiring its use in films like Goodfellas and Birdman. Bela Tarr's 1982 TV adaptation of Macbeth made the bold decision to tell the entire story in just 2 continuous shots. The first shot, lasting 5 minutes, sets up the story. The second shot is a 57-minute take, where the story unfolds in real time before the viewer's eyes and mirrors the form of a theatrical stage production. Tar showed how directors could use the long take to create a unique cinematic language, emphasizing atmosphere and narrative flow over conventional editing. The year is 1984, and Ghostbusters brings us a rare example of a long take in a blockbuster comedy.
Generic. See, I can get 600 tablets of that for the same price as 300 of a name brand. That makes good financial sense. Good advice.
Director Ivan Reitman let Rick Moranis' performance shine, allowing his ad-libs and physical comedy to take the spotlight.
Even this whole thing is a promotional expense. That's why I invited clients instead of friends. You having a good time, Mark?
The camera fluidly tracks him moving through the crowded space of the party without cutting until the reveal of this terror dog in the closet. Apologies for the jump scare. Incorporating a burning structure was the ambitious addition to the oneer by Soviet director Andrei Tarkovsky. He did this on a lesser scale in his earlier film Mirror in 1975 with a smaller structure and a shorter shot, though still around a minute long. However, this long shot in his film The Sacrifice clocks in at over 6 minutes and sees an entire building consumed by flames. It required careful planning, as it all had to be executed perfectly in a single take due to the practical constraints of setting a house on fire. However, it ultimately took 2 takes. The camera jammed on the first take, ruining the footage. A costly reconstruction of the house was built in 2 weeks, and Tarkovsky tried again, this time with a backup camera rolling for safety. The result is this impressive, unbroken shot that enhances the visceral impact of the destruction of this home. By the 90s, the oneer was truly an established film trope.
Joel Levison's office.
The movie The Player opens with an impressive 8-minute-long continuous shot that weaves us through the chaotic backlot of a movie studio. Robert Altman creates a meta-comedy that is all about the making of movies, so he put those filmmaking techniques on open display here. In a little self-aware wink to moviegoers and long-shot lovers alike,
pictures they make these days are all MTV. Cut, 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 cut. The opening shot of Welles' Touch of Evil was 6.5 minutes long.
One character even explicitly references the Touch of Evil opening oneer we covered earlier at the beginning of the scene, and then 5 minutes later in this impossibly long take returns to frame to talk about
Rope was a masterpiece. The story wasn't any good. He shot the whole thing without cuts. I hate all this cut.
If you want to prove a performer's incredible talent, there's no better way than to sustain their performance in a long take.
And it's very difficult for me to do everything in one shot.
It shouldn't come as a shock, then, that long takes have been used since the inception of martial arts films. Cue the Kung Fu montage. Hong Kong-based director John Woo's Hard Boiled showcases an action-packed oneer that's not exactly kung fu, but rather gun fu. It's a tightly choreographed display of destruction involving shattered glass, explosion, and lots of gunfire. 3 minutes of it. Instead of cutting, Woo actually plays with his signature slow motion, using it to emphasize key beats throughout. Perhaps the most impressive feat of this oneer is how the production team was able to reset and transform this hospital set within 30 seconds during an elevator ride. It makes it appear as a new floor for the characters to continue their rampage, all without cutting.
What do you mean? You don't be giving Marcellus Wallace's new bride a foot massage.
The long shot of Vincent and Jules walking through an apartment building's hallways in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction is an instance of a oneer so seamless and engaging that most viewers never even realize the camera didn't cut for almost 3 minutes.
Look, foot massages don't mean shit. Have you ever given a foot massage? Don't be telling me about
The writing and iconic performances take center stage, and as a result, draw the audience's attention, immersing them in this uninterrupted flow.
Here we go.
Then we have Kathryn Bigelow's Strange Days, which brought us our first notable POV oneer. Over the course of the shot, several cameras are utilized, one of which was designed specifically for the film in the year leading up to production. As Bigelow explained, it was a lightweight, stripped-down ARRI, still compatible with all the prime lenses. Combining this with a helmet-integrated display unit, which allowed her to put the camera where the actor's actual head would be. Also notable, this shot features a 16-foot jump between two buildings by a stunt performer without a safety harness, which took 2 years to coordinate. To put these various cameras together, they used hidden cuts that mask the camera switches. For example, this jump was filmed using a helmet cam, while this run up the staircase used a Steadicam, but it all flows together seamlessly and makes for an incredibly memorable action sequence.
Mom.
In an homage to the infamous Copa shot in Goodfellas, Doug Liman's Swingers features a tracking shot in which the characters skip the line to get into a nightclub, taking them through the employee entrance and the kitchen. Much like the original, they move between drastically different lighting setups. To maintain proper exposure in a single take, cinematographers use a follow focus system on the aperture, like they would use on the focus ring.
How's it going? Keep the waters coming.
Adjusting the aperture smoothly as the camera moves between dark exteriors, bright kitchens, and ambient club interiors allows for this transition without spikes in brightness.
I'm saying he does not have the right to tell me how to dress. Where does he get out to tell me how to dress?
P.T. Anderson employs the oneer a few times in his film Boogie Nights, but this one at a pool party in the 1970s San Fernando Valley is unique in that it may be the only oneer that actually submerges the camera in the water and out again in a continuous shot. We meet various characters around the party, eventually following one into the pool, capturing a glimpse of swimmers beneath the surface, making us truly feel like voyeurs. In our research, we didn't turn up any, but let us know if you know of other underwater oneers. With long takes consistently growing in length, it was only a matter of time before filmmakers set out to redo and one-up what Hitchcock did with Rope some 50 years earlier. Cue the montage of one-take movies. These whole film oneers vary in length, scope, genre, and budget, but all represent the most impressive feat a oneer can accomplish, telling an entire story beginning, middle, and end in one long take. These films also exemplify the diverse potential of the oneer, using unbroken takes to enhance tension, immerse audiences in action, or explore emotional depths. But perhaps the most consequential and innovative film to do it was the one that came before them all in 2002, Russian Ark. This 9-minute ballroom scene in Russian Ark would be impressive on its own. It features an elaborate waltz where the choreography of both the dancers and the camera is meticulously timed. It involves hundreds of extras, including a full orchestra. But knowing this is just one small slice out of a full 87-minute-long one-take feature film is truly mind-blowing, especially if you consider its 2,000 extras in total and 3 full orchestras. All of this was made possible by the proliferation of digital cameras used in filmmaking. The entire movie was filmed in uncompressed HD video using a Sony HDW F900, with footage stored on hard disk capable of holding 100 minutes, which was carried behind the cameraman as he moved from scene to scene. Here we have a oneer from Brian De Palma's Snake Eyes. We follow Nicolas Cage as Detective Rick Santoro extorting money from a drug dealer.
All right, don't move. I'll be right back.
What starts as a casual conversation quickly shifts into a frenzied chase down an escalator and around corners. De Palma utilizes dynamic camera movements with Dutch angles as Rick catches the drug dealer and takes his money. We then follow Rick once more as he gives the money to the guy he was talking to at the start, creating nice bookends for this long take.
$3,000 on Tyler. This was a little sticky.
Except that's not the end at all. This take continues on for another 5 minutes.
What?
Though not the longest of long takes, this oneer from Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan is impressive in its scope, capturing what many called the most authentic feeling World War II battle committed to film. Spielberg's use of a handheld camera and unsteady movement mimics a soldier's perspective, heightening the sense of disorientation and chaos. The integration of practical effects from smoke, fire, and bullets made it all the more real. The take ends with the camera moving outside a second-story window to oversee all of the destruction.
It was on the tip of everyone's tongue. Tyler and I just gave it a name.
David Fincher uses a oneer to immerse viewers in the gritty world of Fight Club, as Tyler Durden and the narrator lead the audience into a seedy bar. The long take allows the audience to absorb this atmosphere naturally, the camera panning across the full bar and its patrons. Fincher's precise directing style and dedication to detail is a perfect pairing with the exacting needs of a oneer. We'll circle back to that in a bit. Now we arrive at the 21st century. Director Mike Figgis set out to do something new and innovative. His entire 97-minute-long film was shot with 4 lightweight digital cameras running simultaneously, and the whole thing is a single take. It follows 4 real-time narratives using split screen, dialing up and down the audio to help the viewers focus. The actors and crew performed live for the entire duration of the film, which requires an amazing effort of coordination. M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable is filled with over 30 one-take scenes, many of which go on for multiple minutes. Shyamalan often uses long takes to focus on characters in dialogue-heavy or emotionally charged scenes, like in the film's opening, which also happens to be the longest of the movie. The camera shoots from the seats, in front of the protagonist David and a woman he's just met, panning back and forth as each actor delivers their dialogue. The unbroken take builds suspense as the train hurtles towards the fatal crash that will ultimately set David on his journey. Sometimes a oneer is born out of necessity.
What do you mean?
This cathedral scene in 2001's A Knight's Tale was concocted because the filmmakers only had permission to film in the location for one night.
Do badly.
Lose.
No, losing proves nothing, except that I'm a loser.
Wrong.
The scene is over 3 minutes, with the camera tracking the characters' movements as they argue. By doing it in a single take, they minimize the time that would have been wasted in setting up for multiple shots.
Really? Shh, woman.
Do not shh me and spare him. Now be gone.
Okay, back to Fincher. This long take in Panic Room is notable for its seamless blending of CGI and live-action footage. The shot moves around a home as people outside are seen trying to break in, establishing the geography of the house where most of the story takes place. The camera appears to glide through walls, floors, and tight spaces a camera could never actually fit through, like a keyhole and a coffee pot handle. Historically, shots like this would have been achieved through intricate set constructions with removable walls or other set elements. But Fincher's digital approach, which was relatively new at the time, allowed for a level of movement and fluidity that was previously impossible. One of the most celebrated action oneers is this corridor fight from Park Chan-wook's Old Boy. For over 2 minutes, a single, uncut lateral tracking shot spans the entire length of the corridor, reminiscent of a side-scrolling video game, as protagonist Oh Daisu fights off innumerable enemies. Watching the fight in real time, viewers can feel the raw, unfiltered intensity. The scene is made to look gritty and grounded, with characters stumbling and struggling and showing their fatigue. This unpolished approach to the fight adds to the realism and makes the scene stand out from choreographed martial arts films. This one scene alone would go on to influence action properties like Netflix's Daredevil, The Raid 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And while we're covering great action movies, in Kill Bill Volume 1, Quentin Tarantino gives us a oneer that was so intense to execute, it's rumored that Steadicam operator Larry McConkey, who also did the one for Goodfellas, passed out due to exhaustion. Watching it, it's easy to see why. The single shot includes extreme close-ups, wide shots, Dutch angles, and an overhead shot that removes the ceiling to give us a bird's-eye view of the characters in the venue. It has multiple lighting changes, including one that allows us to see through a screen where the bride character removes her jacket. After 6 hours of rehearsal and 17 takes, it's no wonder McConkey was feeling the fatigue. The two oneers in Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead show us how we are all zombies in our mundane daily routines. In the first of the two, we follow Shaun, walking through his neighborhood oblivious to his surroundings, highlighting his repetitive, unremarkable life. Later, the same route is revisited after the zombie outbreak. The long take mirrors the earlier one, but now features subtle and increasingly absurd zombie-related details. Sean's obliviousness creates comedic tension as he fails to notice the drastic changes. Long takes in horror often serve to build suspense and create a sense of unease, like in The Shining. Wright flips this stereotype, using these oneers to highlight absurdity with comedic timing. The Day After Tomorrow brought us what, at the time, was the longest continuous all-CGI shot in a film. The shot was produced by digitally scanning miniature iceberg models crafted from sculpted styrofoam and goes on for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Rendering the 10 to 15 layers, which included subsurface scattering to make the ice translucent, took 2.5 to 3 hours per frame on dual processor Intel Xeons with 6 gigabytes of RAM. This sounds quite impressive, but it's actually less processing power than you have today in the smartphone in your pocket. Unlike live-action long takes where physical camera movements and staging are major challenges, this entirely CGI oneer from the Polar Express showcases the freedom afforded by fully digital environments. Robert Zemeckis created a shot that would be impossible to achieve practically, which takes the audience on a thrilling ride as the camera stays with this golden ticket flying outside the train, swept up by a pack of wolves, then a soaring bald eagle, and finally returning to the train, all beautifully executed with computer graphics. Legendary martial artist Tony Jaa and his stunt team pushed the boundaries of what is physically possible in a single take with this Thai film, Tom-Yum-Goong, or as it's known in the US, The Protector. In this oneer, Tony demonstrates the full range of his abilities as he dispatches endless waves of gangsters, flips and climbs up walls, smashes chairs and banisters, and throws multiple people off of balconies. By the end, we see how truly exhausted he is, and it's made all the more realistic by the fact that the camera has followed him for the entire time without cutting. If you are a long take enthusiast, then you knew this one was coming. Alfonso Cuarón's Children of Men contains multiple iconic oneers, but perhaps the most famous and innovative of all is the Battle of Bexhill sequence. We follow Clive Owen's character as he strives to stay alive amidst a chaotic battle. The sequence utilizes hundreds of extras, pyrotechnics, and practical effects. In one notable moment, a blood squib goes off close to the camera, splattering it for the remainder of the shot. This actually gives it a raw, almost documentary-like feel, heightening the realism and immersing us in the action. Cuarón had 14 days to shoot this sequence, but spent the first 12 rehearsing. Each time they did another take, it took 5 hours to reset, making it a race against the clock before they lost daylight. The result is a 6-minute-long, visceral scene that appears as one continuous shot. Though, it actually does contain several cleverly hidden cuts digitally stitched together. The Dunkirk beach oneer in Atonement clocks in at just over 5 minutes long, and is a remarkable feat of complexity. The scene involves hundreds of extras, vehicles, horses, and historical props. As the tracking shot brings us through a crowded beach evacuation, we're shown mini vignettes, like soldiers singing and horses running by. The camera travels about a quarter mile over the course of the shot, which would have been too much for a Steadicam operator, especially walking backwards. In actuality, they used an electric car and rickshaw to carry the operator along, seamlessly transitioning from seated to walking and back again. Cloverfield is the first found-footage-style film to employ a truly complex and unique oneer. The handheld, shaky, chaotic style simulates someone documenting the events of a disaster. Compared to other oneers, it feels less about showcasing the technical prowess of director Matt Reeves and more about creating an immersive experience that mimics the perspective of a character caught in a terrifying moment. There are some truly disorienting beats where the camera shakes, simulating how any of us might film a shocking moment on our phone.
Did you guys just see that?
If you want a masterclass on how to hide the cut in a oneer, look no further than Terminator Salvation. This long take is actually comprised of a series of expertly masked hookup shots that follow Christian Bale's character from a battlefield into a helicopter and back to the battlefield after taking the audience through a chaotic crash.
Come here!
The first cut is here, where the camera whip pans. The editor retains the blurred landscape in the pan, which makes it feel all of a single place. However, we are actually in an entirely different location, a parking lot in Albuquerque Studios. Another quick cut here. The next cut is when the camera pushes inside the chopper, leaving the parking lot, and now we are on a soundstage surrounded by about 60 feet of blue screen. Next, the transition here, when the chopper crashes and Bale is swapped for a stuntman. Another masked cut when the chopper finally stops rolling and they have digitally put Bale's face onto the stuntman. And finally, back onto the battlefield. If you didn't know what to look for, you would easily miss it. And that's the point. With the rise of YouTube, it was only a matter of time before the Wonder found its way there. In 2009, a viral music video for OK Go's Here It Goes Again featured intricate treadmill choreography filmed in a single unbroken take. Though there is no camera movement, it's still a feat of creativity and skill that is a complete viral spectacle. Single takes were now a part of social media, a way to prove your authenticity and hard work. But we can't talk about music video Wonders without mentioning Spike Jonze and Michel Gondry. Jonze notably used the Wonder for Weezer's Undone, the Sweater song, using a Steadicam while capturing the band performing to a sped-up version of the song so that when it played back, it was at normal speed. This creates the illusion that the band is actually playing in slow motion. And his video for California by Wax is iconic for featuring a man running while on fire in one continuous shot. Gondry utilizes the Wonder in his single-take 7-minute video for Protection by Massive Attack, with the camera moving in and out of an apartment building to observe its tenants. And his video for Sugar Water showcases a single take played backwards and forwards at the same time. Truly mind-bending stuff.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me.
The Wonder even found its way into the world of commercial advertising. Though by nature commercials won't reach the impressive lengths some feature film Wonders boast, the Old Spice commercial, The Man Your Man Could Smell Like, features elaborate moving set pieces, special effects, and precise timing gelling into a true visual feast. Also, it's pretty funny.
I'm on a horse.
With 2011's The Adventures of Tintin, Steven Spielberg brought us an all-CGI Wonder notable for its use of performance capture technology and virtual cinematography that allowed him to create something impossible to accomplish with live action. The high-octane chase through the Moroccan town leads Tintin's snowy antagonists across rooftops, streets, and rivers in a visually complex, ever-changing environment. By using performance capture to direct actors' performance and overlaying them with meticulously animated environments, Spielberg pushed the boundaries of what animated Wonders could be.
I've got 3 exits.
Though not the longest of Wonders, this take of James Bond entering a casino in Macau is notable for a few reasons. First, it's a fantastic use of lighting. Cinematographer Roger Deakins used practical lighting and digital enhancements to craft an ethereal glow, at one point turning Bond into a silhouette, perhaps a reference to the iconic gun barrel opener of nearly all James Bond films.
You gamble?
I like a little flutter now and then.
Also, atypical for the Bond franchise and action movies in general, this Wonder here is not used for a highly kinetic action sequence. Instead, it serves as an almost meditative pause that contrasts with the film's otherwise dynamic pace. The 13-minute-long opening scene of Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity required extensive digital compositing and virtual cinematography to simulate the weightlessness of space. It makes use of an LED light box for controlled lighting on actors as the color temperature changes multiple times throughout. The shot also involved the creation of a robotic camera rig called Iris, which enabled the camera to effectively float around the actors. With its programmed precise moves, it was able to replicate how astronauts move in space. The entirety of Alejandro González Iñárritu's Birdman is made to appear as if it is one long 2-hour shot. While not truly a single-take film, the seamless editing and camera choreography create a flowing, unbroken narrative. Emmanuel Lubezki, the cinematographer, used Steadicam, wire rigs, and handheld techniques to follow characters through complex spaces, transitioning smoothly between scenes.
Raymond Carver for the stage.
digital effects were subtly used to stitch shots together, making transitions invisible to the audience. According to Lebesky, most shots lasted approximately 10 minutes, with the longest extending to around 15. They were able to achieve this with extensive rehearsals, crafting a proxy set in Los Angeles, reassembling the St. James Theater where the film takes place, and elaborately blocking out each shot.
It was good. It's outstanding.
He blew the D section.
Oh, they're still in the featuring.
Yeah, I said it was fine.
Around the early 2000s, the TV landscape changed. Prestige TV budgets inflated, and with that came many stars, crews, and techniques traditionally reserved for the big screen. With more money and talent, and a hunger to break boundaries, the winner inevitably landed on the small screen. Director Cary Fukunaga executed this 6-minute long take in the much-lauded Season 1, Episode 4 of True Detective. The production team positioned makeup artists in nearby houses, ready to dash out and apply makeup to injured characters' heads when needed. Assistant directors were stationed throughout the neighborhood, coordinating extras who had specific lines to yell and paths to follow. Special effects technicians added to the chaos by hurling foam bricks and firing dummy rounds, while stunt coordinators worked with the drivers to ensure precise timing for the vehicles. The first 3 takes were botched, but the 4th was a success, making television history. While the original take clocked in at 7 minutes, director Matthew Vaughn ultimately decided to break the epic church fight scene in Kingsman's The Secret Service into 3 shorter shots. Utilizing hyper-stylized action inspired by comic books, the exaggerated speed ramps, quick pans, and whip-like camera movements mimic the sensation of reading action-packed comic panels. The camera remains tightly focused on Colin Firth, emphasizing his transition from suave spy to uncontrollable killing machine, all while synchronized to the music of Leonard Skinner's Freebirds. There was no stitching together in post for this 4.5-minute long take of a 2-round boxing match in 2015's Creed. The match plays out in real time, and the camera bobs and weaves as though it's a third fighter in the ring. Unlike typical sports film techniques that rely on rapid cuts and close-ups to convey intensity, the long take in Creed captures the perspective from one fighter to another, building to an intense and satisfying climax. Spectre starts on a grand scale with a Dia de los Muertos parade in Mexico City, and eventually hones in on an intimate moment between Bond and a female companion, and then it moves us back into a larger set piece once more. It accomplishes this with cleverly hidden cuts. Let me show you how. The opening shot of the parade was captured using a techno crane, starting with a wide establishing view, lowering the crane and pushing in to track the actors. A seamless transition occurs as Bond and the woman enter a hotel, which is actually located on a different street. At this point, a Steadicam takes over, following the actors through the lobby and into the elevator. The hotel room itself was a set constructed at Pinewood Studios in the UK.
Where are you going?
I won't be long.
As Bond exits through a window and runs along the roof's ledge, the techno crane takes the camera once more. A massive support scaffold spanning the entire block and rising 3 stories high was constructed to hold the techno crane's track. It all looks like one shot, but it was only made possible through modern editing. I don't care what anyone says. Hardcore Henry is an impressive feat of filmmaking. It's one of the first full-length feature films shot entirely in a first-person point of view, using head-mounted GoPro cameras attached to stunt performers. As though that weren't remarkable enough, the film smartly stitches together multiple long takes to give the illusion of one single unbroken shot. Since the film was shot with wearable cameras, the choreography had to be meticulously tailored to keep the action fluid and cohesive. From parkour sequences to gunfights to hand-to-hand combat. The POV shots combined with long takes feels like an homage to first-person shooter games, mimicking the uninterrupted gameplay experience and bridging the gap between film and interactive media. Inspired by Cary Fukunaga's long shot in True Detective, the creators of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia took their own long shot to television in Season 10, Episode 4, Charlie Work. According to director Matt Shakman, the challenge of the 10-minute shot lay in merging various locations, such as the real exterior of the pub in downtown LA and the set interiors at Fox, with many of those set interiors not being directly connected. The bathroom, main pub, back office, and keg room sets were redesigned to flow into one another, with certain locations like the alley filmed on location to maintain their authenticity. The transitions relied on hiding cuts by panning past walls or using green screen. The shot garnered critical acclaim and proved that the Wonder could even find a home in the half-hour sitcom.
All right, all right, all right.
The A Lovely Night dance number in La La Land is an homage to the golden era of Hollywood musicals with a modern twist. Older musicals were often limited by the technology available at the time. Dynamic camera movements were challenging due to the weight of the equipment. The use of a crane and lighter equipment allowed the camera movements in La La Land to match the dance with 27 different marks for the crane to hit throughout the number. This ultimately achieved the playful dynamic cinematographer Linus Sandgren wanted. The long take allows for smooth transitions between varying angles, making the sequence feel intricate and continuous. Baby Driver's 2.5-minute Wonder is unique for its seamless integration of action and music. In it, Baby walks through a bustling city to retrieve some coffee from a coffee shop, all to the tune of Bob and Earl's Harlem Shuffle. As he sort of dance walks, we see the sights and sounds of the city landscape are all choreographed to the song, blurring the line between diegetic music and non-diegetic sound. The graffiti he passes syncs to the lyrics just at the moment he walks by, and later change to match different lyrics when he walks by again. The buttons pressed at the ATM he passes sound off to the beat of the song. He walks by a brass instrument store just in time to mimic playing horns along with the song. All of this had to be meticulously timed out and placed at appropriate marks to hit the beats. It was rehearsed twice and shot 28 times, and the 21st take ultimately was the one that made the cut. Stuntman turned director David Leitch crafted this 10-minute long unbroken sequence for Atomic Blonde. 7 of those 10 minutes revolve around a highly choreographed fight scene in the confines of a stairwell. Charlize Theron, as Lorraine Broughton, visibly tires, struggles, and sustains injuries, enhancing the realism of this brutal combat. They even seamlessly body swap Charlize for her stunt double in several instances. Like here, when she falls down the stairs, or here, when she crashes into some breakaway cabinets. The scene employs the use of cuts through whip pans, body movements, and moments of disorientation, and to achieve this, had an editor on set to confirm everything lined up. Angamaly Diaries' climactic 11-minute-long take follows a chaotic village festival that erupts into violence. Filmed with a trolley camera, it's remarkable for its scale, involving a crowd of over 1,000 people, multiple simultaneous events, and shifts in focus between different groups of characters. Because the scene was only able to be rehearsed before any of the extras arrived, the sequence exudes an improvisational energy, with characters and extras moving in unpredictable ways.
You see, the stuff I like about you isn't the stuff on the outside.
Though not directed by Michel Gondry, this Wonder, from his executive-produced show Kidding, is an homage to his practical effects and DIY-style visuals. In this scene, guest star Riki Lindholm transforms her life after watching an episode of Mr. Pickle's Puppet Time. In a single take that spans 5 years of her life, viewers witness her renovating her apartment, exercising, hosting friends, and celebrating her fresh start. Behind the scenes, the Kidding crew repeatedly transformed the set in real time, while the camera pointed elsewhere, still rolling. The take required 50 crew members and a specially designed set with flipping walls. In game night, we're given a Wonder that follows a Fabergé egg in a high-stakes game of hot potato. Our main protagonists are trying to steal the egg from a mansion, throwing, dropping, and rolling it to one another as bad guys narrowly miss them. Parts of this sequence were shot on a gimbal, and some on a cable camera, like when we follow the egg here soaring across the balconies, giving this oner the feel of a wild roller coaster ride. Egg itself was actually CGI in instances where it's flying through the air or when it had to be dropped or smashed to avoid causing harm to the actors.
That was easy.
And with the potential of a missed bobbled catch messing up the take. Although technically made up of multiple long tracking shots, Sam Mendes' 1917 is edited to appear as if the entire film unfolds in one continuous take. What results is one of the most immersive war films of all time. Each individual sequence was technically complex and involved intense choreography of extras, lighting, explosions, and actors needing to hit their exact marks to maintain the flow. This couldn't have been done without the use of lightweight cameras, able to be attached to wires, drones, and other equipment. At times, the cinematography team had to move the camera from a shoulder rig to a wire rig in a single shot without cutting, making portability key to the film's success. The camera was also equipped with stabilizers, enabling the operator to smoothly track and move it along the planned paths. The crew created mini set models and used flags and poles to map out the path. They then spent 4 months rehearsing to measure the distance for each scene and ensure the camera and actors were in sync. Based on these rehearsals, more than 5,200 feet of trenches were constructed, determined by the length of the dialogue and the movement of the actors and camera. Knowing they couldn't outborn or outbond a classic car sequence on their limited budget, Extraction director Sam Hargrave realized he could make his scene distinct by employing the oner, placing viewers directly in the heart of the action and creating a real-time experience. The shot ended up being 12 minutes long and includes a car chase, a foot chase, a second car chase, gunfights, knife fights, hand-to-hand combat, and explosions. Hargrave, a former stunt coordinator for Marvel, pushed the boundaries of camera operation by personally handling some of the shots. He strapped himself to the hood of a car with a handheld camera and even secured himself to a rope to film a moment where 2 characters plunge off a balcony. The sequence serves as a standout moment in the film, elevating it above many contemporary action movies in terms of technical achievement.
Don't stop making fucking sandwiches.
Yes, chef.
I'm gonna make 3 sections, okay? They're gonna be wet, hot, and sweet, all right? I'm gonna take green tape, make those
It's hard to make a show about a restaurant kitchen feel as intense as a war film, but if you're going to do it, a oner is the way to go.
Label that shit, please, chef.
Yes, chef.
Tina, fire every single chicken we have, please, okay? Richie, do you even know how to do fries?
Season 1, Episode 7 of The Bear, titled Review, contains an 18-minute unbroken shot of the escalating chaos of the restaurant's lunch rush in real time.
Working on this shit.
Yo, come on, what are you tripping for?
Come
the
on,
cakes are
what
in
the
the
fuck
oven?
am I tripping
If
for?
I'm doing
Are
this
you
till they're done,
here right
it doesn't
now?
make a difference.
It is remarkable for the tightly choreographed movement of the kitchen staff. The camera team had to closely watch floor rehearsals by the actors and elaborately plan how to work around them.
Fire everything right fucking now.
Okay, I'll fire everything now. I just was finishing
Step
talking
out.
to Marcus and
Step out.
Okay, I'm gonna talk to Marcus.
Step out. Get the fuck off my expo, chef
The
now!
uninterrupted shot underscores the unraveling dynamic of the main characters, as the pressure of the day exposed fractures in their relationship. The absence of cuts leaves no escape for the raw, emotional confrontations. The second season of Severance opens with a oner through a maze of liminal office hallways. Though it appears as an unbroken shot, director Ben Stiller said it was actually split up into 10 parts and filmed over the course of 4 or 5 months as different pieces of the set became ready. The shot begins with a Zolly move, also called a dolly zoom, zooming out while the camera pushes in, creating a compression effect that squishes Adam Scott's face. From there, the camera was attached to a piece of equipment called a bolt arm, allowing them to coordinate precise moments, even circling Scott 360 degrees. Because the bolt arm can't be stopped once programmed, Stiller said the shot required numerous safety checks and was rehearsed with Scott many, many times to avoid an accident. While running through the twisting and winding corridors, the camera was attached to what Stiller called a pogo stick gimbal, a lightweight camera on a stick that a cameraman can hold while running full speed. At one point, Scott even runs on a treadmill on a green screen stage with no set whatsoever. The 10 shots were stitched together digitally by the VFX team, making it all seem like one long take. According to Stiller and Scott, the team responsible for the shot had their own little wrap party when it was completed. And that's a wrap for us as well. So why do we care?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Ultimately, one-ers are the place where a director and the entire team can bring all their filmmaking chops to bear. It's the peak of coordination, technical achievement, planning, practice, and control. When done correctly and in the right moment, it can shock and wow an audience and also draw them deeper into the narrative. But beyond all that, it's the closest modern filmmaking gets to being real. One-ers and long takes are more like crafted plays that require everyone to be on their A-game or risk ruining the shot. So of course it isn't the end. Future directors will continue to evolve the form and push the long take to new heights, and of course, new lengths.
I hate all this cut.